Hey everyone, this is John Hansbrough. I'm here with Alex Rasmussen, who heads up our retirement planning. Alex, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're here to talk about retirement plans. So give us a little bit about that. Kind of what do you do? What's your role with the retirement plan? What do you do with them? And when do typically people engage with you about them?
Sure. Thanks, John, for the introduction. So, hi, everyone. I'm Alex Rasmussen. I am a partner of John's with the LBL Group, and I am the retirement advisor for the group. And basically, my role is to manage full-on retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, simple IRAs, SEPs, and any type of retirement assets that people have on, the individual wealth management side as well. Our primary client on the wealth management side are typically retirees. I don't really specialize in the young up and comers that are looking for more speculative or aggressive investments. I get a lot of questions about, hey, what are the new marijuana stocks to invest in? I don't know. I'm more about maintaining people's assets to provide income for life during retirement and approaching retirement. So, usually my interactions consist of people asking questions about retirement plans, how to invest in a retirement plan, a longer term outlook and time horizon for those assets. And then I get, again, the individuals that are approaching retirement or in retirement, and they want to know how to make that money last throughout however many years it is that they have left. Keeping in mind different rules that are required. What we're about to talk about today is the required minimum distributions and different tax consequences and questions like that. I'm not a tax advisor and I don't provide tax advice. I can explain the rules within the retirement accounts about those things.
Awesome, cool, yeah, always a good caveat. We're not
Yeah.
we're not the tax people. That's not our job. So okay, with RMDs, required minimum distributions, what was it that happened last year during COVID? How were those affected in 2020?
Sure. Good question. So at the end of 2019, the Secure Act was signed, and what that did is it extended the age in which somebody had to start taking their required minimum distributions. It used to be people who were 70 and a half in that year that they would have to start taking those distributions. And it was always such a weird thing, like 70 and a half, who tracks half a year? But
Yeah, that sounds
luckily
odd.
they just said, you know what, let's do 72. People are retiring later, they're living longer. So having to start, liquidating those assets at 70 and a half was just kind of awkward. And, it made a little more sense to extend that out for those people who didn't want to take that money out of the retirement accounts. Just to kind of define what a required minimum distribution is for those who may not know. Especially the younger folks are like, what are you talking about? Basically, retirement plans and IRAs are, tax sheltered accounts where you can put pre-tax money in and it grows tax deferred. Roth is handled differently, but this is mostly for the benefit of that, tax deferred money. You never get away from paying taxes. Unfortunately, there's very few situations in where you don't have to pay taxes on any type of growth. If insurance products, that's a different situation. But for the most part, investments, if they're growing, you're going to pay taxes on them. Any kind of tax deferred money, if you don't pay taxes on it now, you're going to pay taxes on it later. Uncle Sam always wants his cut. So required minimum distributions have been, created by the IRS. It's the IRS. It's not your employer or any like mean financial advisor or anything like that. But the IRS has said you need to start taking money out of those tax deferred accounts so we can get our cut. You're not allowed to pass that tax deferred money on, completely to your heirs. They want their cut before you pass away. Because
Yeah.
essentially there are some people who are on the wealthier end that, basically could in turn pass that down for generations and the IRS never gets their cut. So they don't want that to happen. So they do require that people start liquidating from those pre-tax accounts. Used to be at 70 half. Now, again, it's at 72. So anybody who turns 72 after January 1st, 2020 can now wait until they're 72. So if you were
So
71,
it pushed it off a little bit.
yeah. So if you're 71 in 2020, you were not on the hook for taking it, that year, essentially. So if you turned 70 and a half in 2020, you didn't have to take it that year. You could push it out another, year and a half, essentially.
God, okay. So they got to delay it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Our RMDs are calculated is that they take your ending balance on 12/31 of the previous year. So if we were in 2020 and we were about to take our RMD, they would look at my balance on December 31st, 2019 and say, okay, Alex, you're 70 and a half or you're 72. You're going to have to take out X amount of dollars based on that last balance of that account on December 31st, 2019. And that's my required amount in 2020. At the end of 2019, we were at an all-time market high. And then pandemic hit and we had a lot of volatility and we had a very steep drop. So part of the CARES Act that came out, in response to the coronavirus was that people who were ordinarily supposed to be taking RMDs in 2020, they could waive that for the year. So you could still take it if you wanted to. So if you were somebody who needed that income and relied on that income, absolutely, you still take it. You're still taxed in the same ways and all of that. But for those people who did not want to take it or didn't have to, they didn't have to. And the good thing about that was that's less taxes that they're going to have to pay. And that money stayed invested in order to rebound from the drop that we had in February and March and, the panic from the coronavirus. Luckily, the market did see a nice recovery. So if you didn't have to take it out, that money stayed in and it stayed invested, you're back where you were probably, and then some from, your ending balance in 2019. So otherwise, there's a life expectancy table that the RMD required amount is based on. And if doing that calculation from a much higher balance and then your account drops, it's a way bigger percentage than what is ordinarily required. And that could have really devastated certain accounts. So, thank goodness for the Secure Act extending the year until age 72. And thank goodness for the CARES Act that, let people's accounts recover and, save some tax money as well for the 2020 year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Really cool. So then for 2021, what's the plan? What's coming on for this year?
Well, everything's back to normal. So if you were already 70 and a half and taking your required minimum distributions, you got to take them again this year. And if you are now, turning 72 this year, then you're going to have to start taking them. What we do internally at the LBL is we have a list of those people that we run every single year to see who's supposed to take it that year. Because there are some very steep penalties for not taking it. It's 50% of the amount you're supposed to take it, and you're still taxed on the amount that you are supposed to take. So let's just say you're supposed to take $5,000 out of your account, and you only take $4,999.99. Well, you're going to get taxed 50%. You're still going to pay a 50% penalty, which would be $2,500 in this case, and you're going to get taxed on that $5,000. So you definitely.
Oh, so it's not the difference; it's the total amount you're supposed to take out.
You're taxed on you're taxed on the amount, and you're going to pay the penalty. So double whammy.
Yeah.
So you definitely don't want to miss those RMDs. So what we do is we always suggest that if clients are not already drawing down an automatic, monthly salary basically out of their own accounts for themselves, then we always suggest that they do a systematic required minimum distribution, which means that they're just taking it automatically. The company where the assets are held is going to calculate that amount for them every single year, and they're going to divvy it up over however many times they want to take it. So if somebody wants to do their RMD annually just once, then they just get one lump sum. They decide when it comes out, and it just happens every year. Same thing if they want semi-annual, quarterly, or monthly payments, that company is going to take their balance again at the previous end of year and divide that up over the times that they want to take that total RMD. So we make sure that our clients don't miss it. Now, something to keep in mind is that that's the rule for IRAs, and IRAs that you have with an advisor, they can probably help you with that and all of that. If you are still working at a company where you're not at least a 5% owner, then you don't have to take your RMD from that particular account. So I have some clients, they are still working and they have their 401k, but they also have an IRA as well. They have to take their RMD from their IRA. They don't necessarily have to take their RMD from their 401k while they're still working.
Got it. Is it still calculating though the total value of both accounts together, or
No.
is the RMD just based on solely the IRA's balance?
So good question. So if you have, so your 401k, each company is going to calculate your required amount based on that balance that they know you have. If you have
Got it.
multiple IRAs, you don't have to take an RMD from every single one, but the amount is crucial. So let's say you have to take $5,000 from one IRA and $2,000 from another one. You could do all 7 from one account. All 7,000. As long as
Gotcha.
you take it the minimum amount, it doesn't have to come from every single account. That's the rule for IRAs. For a 401k, they're gonna just calculate. They're gonna calculate what you have there, and you have to take it if you're not working there. So I would just be really careful. That's why a lot of times, this isn't necessarily giving advice, but a lot of people do like to consolidate when they do retire, and maybe not necessarily just one account. That may not suit their that may not be suitable for whatever their like financial goals are, but they try to consolidate as much as they can so they don't have to calculate too many RMDs from all these different institutions and keep track of that.
Yeah.
Because again, if you miss it, that's a steep penalty.
Yeah. So that must be a big, I mean, there's probably a good reason then to think about, you don't need to have necessarily 4 different IRAs. It probably makes sense to roll those all together into one so that you don't have the chance. It kind of probably reduces the chance of having mistakes on administering that and calculating those RMDs, right?
Sure. I mean, again, it depends on your overall financial plan and what the purpose of each account is. I have several clients that have one account that's just like a brokerage and they're just investing into different mutual funds. And there's a specific strategy for that account. Then some clients will have an annuity or something that provides some other type of, lifelong benefit, some like income security or something like that. And they have a separate bucket for that. And so yeah, they don't have, technically it's all IRA money, but they might have different accounts for different purposes, and that's okay. You just have to be aware that each account is going to give you a required minimum distribution amount, and you need to take it regardless of how many accounts you do have.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Is there anything else to add then on how you handle RMDs or anything about your process and how you follow that throughout the course of a year for a client?
Yeah, so we run a report, and just to see, who is already set up for systematic RMDs. Great. Do they need to make changes? No. Okay, that's fine. And then, last year, some of the companies that we work with, the custodians themselves, they automatically halted the RMD. So we had to reach out to each client and say, hey, you're not going to get your regular RMD like you normally do because of the CARES Act. They were at liberty to take it if they wanted to, but we still called and explained to them why that was happening. And then going forward, again, we run our report to see, are there any new folks that we manage that are in that position where we need to set them up automatically. And then we do that to make sure that anything that's managed under us is, properly handled so they don't run into any penalty situations. Take an inventory of all the IRAs and 401ks and 403bs that you've ever had and see where you're at. And consolidating is helpful. It's not absolutely necessary for everything to be in one account, again, because depending on strategy and different things like that, that it's just, it might be easier to properly manage it if it's in less accounts than more.
Right. Yeah.
No more than necessary.
Yeah.
No more than necessary, I should say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just want to reduce the chance of just missing an account here or there that then throws the balance a little bit higher. It means you could fall into that penalty zone. So,
right.
Yeah. What are some ways that you see people using their RMDs? Maybe if they don't necessarily need it for, housing your, basic living expenses.
So I actually have a client that is still working. And so she's actually eligible to defer into her 403B. And so she takes an RMD from her regular IRAs that she has, and then she kind of offsets it by putting more away in her 403B. And so,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she's eligible.
Yeah.
She doesn't need.
Yeah, if you're allowed to do it, do it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't need the income, it's it's fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, well, that's really cool. So, thank you for sharing that with us, Alex, about RMDs for 2021 and kind of going over what was different about. I mean, so much was different last year, so it only makes sense that obviously some things changed on RMDs for last year. And if anyone has any questions, I'm going to include your info in the show notes and on the video. But anything else that you have in mind before we go?
Not really.
Yeah, you're here. You're ready to talk if someone's got questions.
If you're required to take them, take them. Don't hesitate.
Yeah, don't hesitate. There's no reason to argue it. So cool. Well, awesome. Thank you, Alex, for your time. We appreciate it. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, Alex is available and happy to help. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.